So this is the second part to healing, because one of the things that we oftentimes find with children that come from homes with trauma um, and abuse is oftentimes we have a tendency of rebuilding or reliving. There's a phrase that you'll hear. It's called paradigms, and if you can imagine a CD that's on repeat, and so it cycles. And so, in the African American community, we have a tendency of calling that generational curses. But in reality, what it is happening is that the trauma was so great or sincere, and this is not just limited. Let me correct myself to African Americans' families, because what happens is that we tend to, long after the trauma and the abuse and all of those things happen, is we have a tendency of repeating it, knowingly or unknowingly. And so we have to gain the awareness of it, and then it's up to us to make those changes. And so we have a tendency, if it was alcoholism, if it was drug use, if it was violence, if it was emotional abuse, which is one thing that I feel personally that we don't put enough emphasis on, because when you're constantly being told that you're something other than what you really are, the emotional scars is just about as a physical scar, if not worse, and people don't understand that. And so it'll send you into a completely different realm, almost in a sense. Um, but the point that I'm making, when it comes to the trauma and when it comes to sincerely look at those early childhood traumas, that's why it's highly recommend for you to do away first and foremost with the stigma about doctors, um, specifically counselors, because not all counselors are, there's different types of counselors, I should say. And so not all counselors are going to recommend or make recommendations of drugs. The, the area in course in which I am seeking to go into is simply just talk therapy and the educational aspect, or the educational part of it. And so that's one of the other main reasons why I could have very easily gone into just a whole evangelical route or aspect of it. Um, in other words, preaching. I'm not knocking that, nor will I speak bad about that, but it's moving into the aspect of problem solution. So not just telling you about the problem, but also providing you with the solution. And so when you talk about the early childhood and when you talk about trauma and how we have a tendency of repeating those things, we have a tendency of, so if you look at your life right now, many people will be shocked, because the very same things that took place or happened when you in your homes when you were children, you'll be very surprised if you step back long enough to view it and to look at it and realize that a lot of those very same things is happening in your life today. The only difference today is that time has passed and that there's different characters today. And that's the part of the healing that has to take place. That's the release of the bondage that I was speaking of. And so you don't have to be a prisoner to that mindset. You don't have to be a prisoner of what it is that you grew up seeing, because you're your own person. See what I'm saying? And so you can break that cycle. You can break free of that trauma. You have that right to heal. And that's what they're not telling us. Through your actions, through your mind, through repetition of doing something different, you can break that generational curse by educating yourself, by equipping yourself with the proper tools, and making that conscious decision every single day that I will be better, that I would do better, that I can have the life that I dreamed of. And that's what you owe it to yourself. That's what you owe to that little boy or that little girl who grew up seeing that chaos and that insanity and that madness, that you don't have to be a prisoner. And so you hurt people hurt, and sick people stay sick. But you are different because you have the choice. And now that you know